So I have some homemade noodle dough right here, and I would show you how I made it, except I already showed you how I made it in my flour tortilla video. So if you haven't seen the flour tortilla video yet, you might want to watch that first to see how to make this dough. But if you've already seen that video, then hey, tortilla dough is also noodle dough, and I'm going to show you how to form this into noodles. It's pretty much exactly the same as making tortillas. This dough is nice and rested. If I do this, it spreads out nicely and it doesn't spring back. And it has a lot of nice moisture in it. It's not too dry. And with just a lightly floured cutting board and a rolling pin, I'm just going to roll it out. And this also is pretty much the exact same process as tortilla making. The only difference is in how you cook it. So if you want to be all perfect and pristine with your noodles, you can try to keep it as rectangular as possible. I don't mind personally if my noodles are a little misshapen here and there. And I'd say the tendency with most beginners is that they roll their noodles out too thick. You want to make sure the dough is as thin as it can be. I mean, there is such a thing as dough that's too thin. I have definitely done that. And it's one of those things you're just going to have to learn by feel over time. And maybe your first batch of noodles won't be that great, but flour is so cheap that it'll barely be a waste of any money. So here you have it. This is about how thick it is. It's still pretty thin. Make sure there's plenty of flour on the surface so that when you roll it up to cut it, it's not going to stick. There are other techniques to making noodles too. You can pull them, but I've never actually done that. So go watch someone else who knows what they're doing. And just cut your nudes. And it's totally cool to toss them with flour like this as you are separating them out. You do not want to cook these as long as you would cook dried pasta. Really just a minute or two. And I like to keep them moving. See how quickly they're already cooking up. You can, of course, eat these noodles just plain, or you can drizzle some of that oil on them and season them with a little bit of salt for an extremely cheap meal. Or you can upgrade ever so slightly with some tomato sauce. Or you could have a little pot of chicken broth, add a little chopped carrot or any other vegetables you have lying around, and just toss the noodles straight in. This is all part of a video where I show you how you can live for just $6.25 a week with ingredients you buy at Target. And those ingredients are flour, salt, oil, and beans. So far we have just used flour and salt making these noodles. And you can totally just eat these noodles plain and dry. I mean, that is legit, but it's probably not going to be very pleasant. They're going to get stuck in your throat. So there are some ways of dressing these up with also very cheap ingredients to make them taste a little bit better and to give yourself a little variety. So one of these you can, of course, just put oil and season with salt. Those were some of our ingredients from the trip. And that alone can be okay. My brother used to eat noodles like this all the time because he didn't have very good taste when he was younger. But if you do have some more ingredients, if you don't want to be so hardcore, you can also add other spices, like maybe a little black pepper, or even some garlic powder or some grated fresh garlic. And for just a few pennies more, you suddenly have a little meal that is a little more flavorful and satisfying. And as for this other little bowl of noodles, In another video, I show how to make a Cajun roux. It is basically just salt, oil, and flour cooked down a bunch, and this is some of that leftover roux I made. The oil separates from the flour as it sits in the fridge, so you have to stir it a bit to bring it back to life, but it will. Looks kind of like chocolate sauce or butterscotch sauce. But believe it or not, even though this sauce only has flour and oil and a little salt in it, it is incredibly flavorful. It's like gravy, only much, much cheaper. And this is not the most appetizing looking thing. It is so flavorful though. It's ridiculously flavorful. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like fried chicken, or like the breading of fried chicken.